It's scary how easy it is for an attacker to take control of your PC. About 2 years ago, I was trying to pirate Geometry Dash, and I was going on all these random sketchy websites, and eventually I downloaded one of the cracks. And next thing I know, I need to reboot and wipe my entire PC. So anyway, let's get right into it. You see it instantly exits, and now we have a shell. And we can type all the commands as last time. We still have full access. Now before we start, I want to explain what a reverse shell is. So over here I drew this diagram, and now basically every computer nowadays has a firewall, which blocks incoming connections. So if the attacker tries directly connecting to the victim, it's going to get blocked by the firewall, but it allows outgoing connections. So what the attacker does is that he gets the victim to execute some malicious code, and that code tells the victim to connect to the attacker. That's why it's called a reverse connection. And since it's an outgoing connection, it bypasses the firewall. Now the attacker can run whatever code he wants. So I'm going to demonstrate this with a tool called netcat, which uses TCP to connect between computers. If you didn't know, TCP is a protocol that allows computers to connect to each other and then exchange data. Now, if we go into the netcat help menu, we see that there's two things that you can do. You can connect and you can listen. So the server is the one that listens and the client is the one that connects. So back to the reverse shell, the attacker is listening and the victim executes code that makes him connect to the attacker. Now I have my VM loaded up, which we're going to use as the victim. So like I said, for reverse shells, the attacker needs to listen and the victim needs to connect. So to listen, you need to type netcat-l-p and then a port. Now for the port that you listen on, you need to create a rule in your firewall settings to actually allow that port, because attackers also have a firewall. So even though we're getting a reverse connection from the victim, the attacker has its own firewall which needs to allow that connection. So I enabled port 4444 through my firewall. So I'm going to listen on that. Now to connect, which the victim needs to do, we need to type netcat, our IP address, so the IP address that it's going to be reverse connecting to, and then the port that we're listening on, which is 4444. And now we're officially connected. So right now we have a really basic TCP connection. All it is basically a chat. And whatever we type on one prompt shows up on the other. And yeah, it's a nice little chat, but how can hackers actually utilize this? I have a program called info.exe. And if you run it, it shows you your username and your computer name. And if I run it on the victim computer, it shows the victim's username and computer name. Now netcat has an option, a -e flag, which lets you forward a program remotely. So whatever program that you choose will be remotely executed by the listener. So let's try this with info.exe. So I'm listening on port 4444 just like last time. And now this time, instead of connecting normally, we're gonna put the -e flag and then type info.exe. Now, as we can see, the username and the computer name of the victim is now shown to us, which is pretty cool because we're basically executing the program as them. Now think about it. How can we take this a step further and forward a program that gives full access to the computer? Well, the answer is right in front of us. Command prompt. I'm going to listen again. Now this time, instead of forwarding info.exe, I'm going to forward cmd.exe, which is the command prompt. Now, as we can see, the victim's prompt showed up now. And let's type who am I? John BC-administrator, which is the victim. And now let's open some programs. So calculator, if we, for example, open Explorer, Explorer opens up, we can look through the files, and basically through command prompt, you have full access to the computer. And to exit the prompt, all we need to do is type exit. Now this is pretty cool, but in a real life scenario, how would an attacker actually do this? He wouldn't get you to download netcat.exe and then type commands that reverse connect to him. That would be way too obvious. Now over here, I have a PowerShell one-liner code, which basically does the same thing as netcat, except all it does is forward cmd.exe. Now over here goes our IP. So the IP that we want the victim to connect back to. And over here goes the port that we wanted to connect back to, which is 4444. Now if I copy this code, start the listener on the server, and have the victim execute it, we see it instantly exits, and now we have a shell. And we can type all the commands as last time. We still have full access. So even that is a bit obvious. So how can the attacker make it even stealthier? I'm going to show you guys a simple example of how someone could sneak code like this into a program. So over here we have Batchcraft. As we can see, it's just a simple game, and we press E to quit the game. Now let's go into the code. So I have the Batchcraft code, and we're gonna put this in when the program exits. So over here's the input. You can see if error level is greater than 4, go to here, that's right here. If error level equals 9, exit. Okay, so this is the part of the code that exits. Now we just need to paste the PowerShell code. So I'm gonna remove this. Now I'm gonna save it. So I'm using Python to host a simple HTTP server for Batchcraft. Now let's set up the listener. In the VM, let's open the HTTP server. So let's say someone sent you a link that forwards to this PC. And let's say the website is a bit more, a bit better than this. So now the victim saves it. So we're gonna save it in the desktop. Now if we run batchcraft, oh yeah, it's just batchcraft, pretty fun, right? Okay, I'm bored now, let's exit the game. Quit game, and just like that, reverse shell, full access. By the way, this is for educational purposes only. I forgot to mention that. If you want to prevent this type of thing from happening to you, it's just the usual stuff. You want to make sure you have an up-to-date antivirus, that you're up-to-date on your updates, and that you're just careful with what you download online. You know, sometimes Geometry Dash isn't even worth it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, sub, join my Discord server, and I'll see you next time.